Today I'm going to discuss the most important chapter of the English honor student and the elective English course whose students have in the BA program students who definitely have the translation subject in their course. So there is a topic of sense and sense of translation. Sense for sense translation is the oldest norm for translating. It fundamentally means translating the meaning of each whole sentences before moving on to the next, and stands in the normative opposition to word for word translation. So there are two type of translation, which is word to word translation and which is sense to sense translations. Sense to sense translation is all about when we try to uh, translate the meaning, the actual sense of the sentence is called the sense of translations. And word to word translation is all about the word to word translation. While we are translating English uh, to Hindi, otherwise Sanskrit to Hindi, and Sanskrit and French language. There is so many language whose are the most important example of sense to sense translation and word to word translation. So here we have some examples. Jerome, a Rome Catholic priest and theologian and historian, coined the term sense for sense, which he this which he used this translation method. ठीक है? Roman Catholic and Georgian priest theological historians, they are the finder of the sense for sense translations who are using this method in the translation process. The sense to sense translation is actual mean is that while we trying to translate the actual meaning of the sentence in the other language, either it is belonging to the Sanskrit, either it is belonging to the Telugu or Malayalam, Hindi, Kannada, Sanskrit. There is lots of language in the Indian religions, and we have to translate this language while we are doing any kind of a documentation work. Otherwise, we are going to the other countries. So this kind of a translation is very important while we are doing this. When he was tasked by the Pope Damasus to review the existing translations of the Gospel and produce a more reliable Latin version. Okay, when he was tasked by the Pope Damasus to review the existing translations of the Joseph and produce a more reliable Latin version. Literal Literary translation is also known as the direct translation, which is found in the everyday usage. ठीक है? Literal translations means to render the text from to the first language to the another language. In Latin, it means word for word translation rather than sentence translations. In Latin, it means word for word translation rather than sentence translations. However, in the study of translation language, literal translation means technical translations. Literal translation, while we are doing a literally translation of the one language to the another language, which is totally different and opposite from the sense to sense translation, which is referred to the translations of the technical, scientific, legal translation or the even technological text. So while we have lots of books in the library as well as in our courses, um, and while we are trying to translate them into the one language to the another language, so there are lots there are so many type of translations. So literal translation is technical translation, is the scientific translation, and sense translation is all about the meaning of the translation. What is the actual meaning of the sentence? We are going to translate it into the another language. It is more important to convey sense of the text, and it should always be kept in mind. Actual meaning of the original should never be played with it. Okay. uh, there are lots of literary texts available in your courses and as well as um, in your library, where we have so many textbooks. While we are try to translate into the other language, so it is very important, try to translate the sense, the meaning of the whole sentence, not word to word, is also a very opposite thing from the sense of sense translation. Word to word translation, while we technically and scientifically translate the language into the another language. For example, commas, apostrophes, these are the literally terms which we have to translate into the word to word translation. While we are doing this kind of a translation into the other language, for example French to English, English to French, so we have to see the sentence technically as well as scientifically too. And while we are trying to translate the sense of the total meaning of the sentence, it's very easy to translate into the another language. So here we have a conclusion. Sense for sense translation is the oldest norm for translating. It fundamentally means translating the meaning of each whole sentence. So, what is the actual meaning of this sentence? What is the whole sentence means is all about the sense to sense translation. While it is written in the French, while it is written in the Sanskrit language, while it is written in the Telugu language, Kannada, Malayalam, either it is belonging to the other country's language as well as. So it is all about the sense. What is the actual meaning of the sentence? So we can easily translate it into the another language. In the other term, literary term is all ways uh, is a technical and scientific uh, translations of the language, while we have to see the word to word translation, and it is also called a direct translation. Directly, when we directly word to word translate the sentence, it is called the literal translation. Okay. So on the other hand, literal sentence, literally translation is also known as direct translation, which is found in a everyday usage. What is the difference between the sense for sense translation and literal translation? So while the question is coming in your examination, again and again you have to write your answer in the same structure of the answer. First of all, you have to define the sense for sense translation. You have to elaborate all the things like how it is come, so and who are the founder of it. So as I have told you, Joram, a Roman Catholic priest and theologian and historian, coined the term sense for sense translation. They are the founder of sense for sense translation. Who are the founder of sense for sense translation, in which we translate the meaning of the sentence, not word to word translated. when he was tasked by Pope Damasus to review the existing translation of the Gospel and produce a more reliable Latin version. Literary translation is also known as a direct translation. So, there is a task is happening while Joram and Roman Catholic priest and theologian historian who found the sense for sent translation and Damasus to review the existence translation of the Gospel and produce a more reliable Latin version. ठीक है एंड उन्होंने प्रोड्यूस किया एक मोर रिलायबल लैटिन वर्जन सेंस फॉर सेंस ट्रांसलेशन का. So on the other hand, now the literal translation is also known as direct translation. While we translate the sentence directly word to word into the another language, either it is belonging from the French to English, either it is belonging to the Telugu in English. So there is a word to word translation. Literal translation means to render the text from one form of the first language to the another. Render the text from one form to the first language to the another language. In Latin, it means word for word translation rather than sentence translation. However, in the study of translation, language literally translation mean technical translations. ठीक है, as I have told you, so you have to explain all the paragraphs and you have to explain all the points in a very deep manner. And your answer should be at least according to your question marks. It should be अगर it will be come in your exam all about the 25 marks. Okay, so you have to write it in a 250 to 300 words. So this kind of a word limitation you have to write, and you have to explain either it will be also come in the short questions like pointing. So it you have to write it and explain it into the like 150 to 100 words. So it will be definitely come in your examination. As I have told you, it is repeating again and again in your questions paper. So just prepare it and learn it. Question this kind of a main point of your trans